Hi, how you doing? In this video, we're going to be looking at the ownership of recorded masters. So you may have noticed that there's loads of older artists that have been selling off their rights to their masters to the major labels, sometimes their publishing rights too. And you may have also heard, as an artist, from various sources always advising you that you should always retain ownership of your own masters. So we're going to look at what this all means, what is a master, why does everybody seem to want to own them? So firstly, what is a master? So quite simply, this is just your final recording. So if you're an artist and you've recorded your own music, the actual final version that you've mixed and mastered, the one that you're going to release, that is the master. So ownership of the recorded masters generally belongs to whoever it is that finances, who pays for the recording to be made in the first place. So that's why labels who are offering big advances or paying for the recording costs will have clauses in their contract that result in them owning the masters to the recordings. If an artist is self-funding, then generally they will own their own masters. Now, in music contracts, the transfer of ownership of the rights to the masters from one person to another is called assignment. So if you see a contract where it says the artist assigns the rights to the master recordings over to the label, that means that you're transferring the ownership of the rights to the masters to the label. And this is permanent. Okay, so even if you may have paid off any advance that they might have given you or whatever, it doesn't matter. They will own those for the rest of your life. They even own them after you die. Okay, this is a permanent transfer. So hopefully you can see right there one of the reasons why everybody wants to own the masters. Because whoever owns the master, they're able to collect income on that recorded piece of music for a long period of time. Okay, so they're the ones that are getting all the royalties, all the revenue that relates to the sale and the use and public performance of the recording itself. So the ownership of master rights has now become a really big topic. Because of digital distribution and streaming primarily, it's meant that music generates an income over a longer period of time than it used to. So in the older days, when labels used to have to manufacture and distribute and then put into record stores all the records that they were then about to promote and spend all this money on marketing, they would make their income in quite a short period of time. It was like a lot of effort, a lot of manufacture, big moment, hype it up, promote it, try to sell it as best you can. And then once that moment had passed, really that was the key moment in time in which you would make the money. There would be some residual sales, but generally speaking, it's that at that moment in time of release. Whereas now, music gets released and will sit and people will play this, and every time it's played or streamed, every time it's streamed, it creates income. So income is generated for a lot longer period of time. So it's not as important for a label to only try to invest in something that's going to be a hit record straight away. They realise that you can make an album, put the album out, your fans will listen to that over many years, and that will keep generating income. So bands and artists can have very successful recording incomes without really actually having big hits. It just sits there and it brings in money over a longer period of time. In addition to this, if music now gets used in a film or an advert or something happens that just generates new interest in the artist or that piece of music, labels don't have to distribute loads of records into the store and try and chase down that demand. It's just sat there on a streaming platform. People can go to it and play it instantly. So that's what happens. So the shelf life of music has been widened because of streaming. The realisation of just how much money can be made in the long term from the ownership of the master rights is resulting in not just the majors buying up all these rights, but also in venture capitalists and investment groups. This is becoming a real investment bubble, if anything. People are buying this thinking that it's going to go up in value in the longer term as the income streams keep growing. People are buying up master rights like they buy up real estate. And the artists that did keep hold of their master rights back in the old days have ended up being quite big artists. They're now getting offered eye-watering amounts. You can't blame them for selling off the masters. Now, in my opinion, it was always unfair that labels retained the ownership of the masters for such a long time. I get that in the older days they had the costs of recording and greater financial risk to promote and market individual releases. I get that. There should have been a period of time that they could have them for. But retaining them for that length of time just doesn't seem right. How is it justifiable that recording executives that are employed today are making tons of money off of a recording that was made 50 years ago by an artist who's still alive today and makes no money from it whatsoever? I totally understand all the legal and contractual clauses that result in that scenario, but from a moral integrity point of view, it just doesn't smell right, does it? Then, in addition to the ongoing streaming income that the major labels are making, they also received huge payouts and sometimes even equity or shares in some of these streaming platforms such as Spotify. And the artists are not entitled to actually receive any of that money. The major labels had so much power because without them giving permission to use all of their music catalogues, the streaming platforms would never have got off the ground. So a deal was done. And a cynical person could argue that the deal that was done favoured the record labels, the major labels, with payouts and shares and dividend payments over what the artists get as a streaming royalty. It's a whole other topic, but just try to point out why they want to own the master rights. And I'm not saying there isn't a place for the major labels, because clearly there is. If you wanted to be an act that wants to break quickly, or you wanted to go global, they've got a formidable marketing machine that is going to be virtually impossible for you to replicate on your own. And even if you're signed with a pretty decent independent label, even they are not going to be able to do what a major label marketing department is going to be able to do for you. So yes, there's still a place for them. There's one final point I want to make about the owning of your masters, and it's not just about the money. There's something to be said for the ownership of your own material and being in control of all parts of your career. If you're in control of your masters and your songs, then you get to decide how they're used. It's up to you whether they'd get used in a Coke advert, or whether your lyrics got rewritten to appear in some crummy radio jingle that you're not really that happy with, or whether they get re-released as part of a greatest hits album, or I don't know, anything else that could happen that might piss you off in some way that you're not sure about. You're in control of this. You get to decide how it suits your career and what it is that you want to do. Being in control like this will probably make you less money in the short term, but give you the greatest chance of long-term income and sustainable career. It's a gamble that you might regret. You might never make the sort of money that was offered to you in that big advance from the major to hand over all of your recorded rights. But I know way more stories of artists who regret signing over their rights than I know of artists who regret not doing so. I guess ultimately, if someone takes control of your masters, then you become like an artist for hire who's been paid off with a fee. And your music in some way has kind of been detached from who you are as an artist. Whereas if you retain control of your masters, then you are taking charge of your own business. And that is ultimately what you need to be aiming to do. I hope that's been helpful, and I hope that's explained a few things for you. We'll see you next time.